Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have War of Aero, classic arcade action. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Ulmer, War of Aero released to arcades in 1993. This title is fairly obscure and there's not much information available about it. Fortunately, it's now available as part of Hamster's Arcade Archives and is available for the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch, which is the version we're looking at today. With all that said, it's not really a title I'm a fan of. The game has some issues, specifically with lack of checkpoints and some relatively questionable stage design. But with all that said, I do like some of the art direction with the game itself, so let's dive into the game. You can see if this is something you'd be interested in as well. Here we find ourselves at the title screen of War of Aero. As you can see, there is the option to play the game 2-player, and it's 2-player simultaneous, so that's how we'll show the game off today. Starting the game, we have this great launch sequence which shows off both player ships, so you can see the awesome design that they have, and they both have different designs. The game itself is your standard vertical scroller with its one fire option that we have. But in addition to that, once we collect some bits, this option here, we can have there is a button that allows us to change that option to fire behind us, thus allowing us to cover from enemies that come from behind. In addition to that, if you press both the bit button as well as your fire button at the same time, it's possible to engage this slow mode, which changes the look of the ship, so you basically transform, and it also slows you down and increases your rate of fire. And if you're playing 2-player, there's the added benefit of if both players are in that slow mode, you can combine together, thus creating a more powerful version of your fighters, as well as providing some additional safety as far as lives. If you get hit in that mode, rather than lose a life, the two ships break up, but you'll start in fast mode and have to change back into slow mode to be able to combine back together. So in addition to that fun combine mechanic, one other difference that the game has from playing single player to 2-player is in single player the game uses a checkpoint mode. So if you lose a life, you reset to a checkpoint. However, in 2-player mode, if you lose a life, you just continue where you lost that life. The problem with this game's checkpoint modes is that the checkpoints are very spread apart. There are only 2 checkpoints in any given stage, the beginning of the stage and one in the midpoint. So it can make it very, very frustrating if you keep on losing to that stage's boss and you're reset to the midpoint and have to go and work all the way back through. I think that might have been a conscious design choice due to the difficulty and sometimes the need of special weapons throughout the course of a stage, but ultimately it just ends up being a frustrating experience going through the same section over and over again because you're having difficulty taking on a certain boss just due to some design choices in either the stage or the boss itself. So this is the first boss here, and with the 2 ships being combined, it's relatively quick to make work of it. The bosses do increase fairly substantially from difficulty though. So starting in the second stage, just going on a little bit about the graphical look that I really appreciate from the game itself. So the first stage takes place in a space colony, something that you'd see in, say, like a Gundam series or something like that. I really like the design there. You've got, it kind of looks like you're just flying over a normal like landscape, but then you can see outside of the ship itself, the whole solar panels, and that whole look is just something that I thought was like really, really awesome. So there was something I haven't mentioned about the bits yet. As you pick up the different options for your bits, you can power up those particular bits as well. So you start off at level 1 and you can power them up twice to a level 3, where they really do account for a large part of your firepower at that point. The game itself has tons of different weapons. I believe there are no less than 8 different main weapons, but one problem that I do have with the way that the game just presents the power-ups is you're only going to go and see some of the power-ups in certain stages, and definitely not frequently enough. In my mind, it would have been significantly better had they had like just one generic power-up that rotated through your options, and maybe reduced a couple of the redundant options, as there's like a 3-way shot and a 5-way shot. There's also this X shot, which fires lasers all around you. But also, when you're combined, the player ships you'll be firing the weapon that is the weapon the player in the front is currently equipped with. So if we swap, well, we're back to the Z layer here, but if we were to go and swap around to the other way, then it would go and be the 5-way shot this time around. So the second stage boss is where I really started to get frustrated with the game design. So on this boss we have targets on the left and the right that need to be destroyed. After those targets are destroyed, you have 2 targets on the inside that need to be destroyed as well. But the way that this ship goes and moves up and down, it ultimately ends up taking up all the space of the stage itself. As once this one's destroyed, you can't pass through on the sides, and there's these blue beams blocking you from passing through the middle as well. So you have to wait till just the perfect opportunity, and at that point it's usually firing shots at you also. It just becomes like a really frustrating boss to fight. It's actually extremely tanky as well. So, and you get reset back to the middle checkpoint of the stage should you lose to this in a single player run. So ultimately, like, it's kind of design choices like this that really soiled my enjoyment of the particular game itself. Loved the design of that enemy, the concept is interesting, however, the execution just felt flawed. And this stage is another one where that's the case. So, as is often the case in the third stage of shoot 'em up, we have a large enemy battleship that we're fighting around. But this is definitely another exercise in frustration playing single player, as you are once again reset to those dreaded checkpoints. And as far as a multiplayer experience, you're just constantly getting respawned into situations where you don't have the right weapon to deal with the stage. It gives you the right weapon at the beginning of this stage, this like side shot, but should you lose a life, you've lost that. So that brings me to some of the options that the arcade emulation actually does provide in this game that has increased my enjoyment. So if you look under the button settings, there's a third button listed that's simply just says that, third button. And it doesn't have any other description as to what that button does. However, if you look under the game preferences, it is possible to turn on a stage select, which you can do from the start screen, and also a weapon select. And that weapon select allows you to switch the weapons at will by pressing that third button in the game itself. Thus allowing you to get to the weapon you need, as it just kind of cycles through the weapons that are available. It gives you the option to get to the weapon you need at the point in the stage that it would be useful. Although, this part of this stage here just kind of strikes me as a little bit on the sadistic side, really. So I would recommend, if you do pick this one up, maybe playing with that weapon select and stage select option that are available there for you to experience. So as far as the minus flavors are concerned, the biggest part of this game that I'm frustrated with is just the confounding level design. Basically only using 2 checkpoints throughout the course of any given stage for single player, and then all the stages where you've got walls and in a lot of cases enemies that are almost impossible to hit, positioned in places where the enemy or the player is just going to have to work through this massive gauntlet of enemies and shots that they can't go and do anything about. I don't find that to go and be very fun and enjoyable. So even playing this game 2-player and not having to worry about the checkpoints, it's still a slog to go and work through for sure. And then there was also the mention problem with the power-ups just not being very well positioned. So, like I said, I would just like to have seen like a better option for your power-up selection there for sure. But as far as the plus flavors are concerned, I do like some of the mech design that the game has quite a bit. Like the bosses look great. Then we also have the whole mechanic where you transform, and also the combining together for the 1 and 2 player. Like, I think that's a really neat mechanic, and it's unfortunate the game itself just ends up being like so much more frustrating because of its overall design and like high difficulty. So at the end of the day, save for those that are the most enthusiastic arcade collectors, this is one that I think is a fair pass for most fans of shoot 'em ups. And with that, that brings us to this end of this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us this week. I hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.